Hey there everybody, Mazrock here. Today we've got Brewmaster for 10.1. We're going to be talking tier, talents, all that fun stuff as we go along. Please don't make fun of my trinkets. I've had really bad luck with trinket drops in 10.1. And I mean really bad. Before we do get into it though, we have a disclaimer. The builds that I make are made for beginner to intermediate players and might differ from bleeding edge or higher end keys. I opt for a mix of defensive and offensive flex points, and we're going to talk about those and what you can move into as well, just because that's kind of the way this channel works and operates, right? Please do like, comment, subscribe. It goes such a long way towards helping out the channel. This is an early access video for patrons as well. They're going to get this for a couple of days ahead of time before it goes live on YouTube. So come on by, check that out if you're interested in early access YouTube, early access Tank Club writings while I write up the guides and all that fun stuff. I put all of my work in progress in there. There's a Discord link. Come on by, join a wonderful community full of great people. There is a Twitch link. Come by, watch me stream. Yeah, there's also merch, some sweet merch that you guys can get as well. I'm trying to come up with some like Brewmaster related merch. I've had a couple of ideas that just don't come to fruition or don't look nice, but we're trying it. But if you have any Brewmaster merch ideas, would love to hear your ideas in the comment section down below. All right, so Brewmaster tier. Let's start off by talking about the tier set. Like I said, don't make fun of my trinkets. I'm aware. I'm very aware. Blackout kick damage increased by 20%, and you have a 10% chance not to reset your elusive brawler stacks on a successful dodge. So what elusive brawler is your mastery. Each time you are hit by a melee attack or hit with blackout kick, you gain 21% increased dodge. Now that's based on your mastery, so that number is variable until your next successful dodge. Now as well, if we go on to the next tier set, Rising Sun Kick also now grants a stack of elusive brawler, and when you dodge, the damage and critical strike chance of your next spinning crane kick or rising sun kick is increased by 5%, stacking up to 5 times. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I started playing with this tier set, I primarily play Mythic Plus. If you've been around this channel a lot, that's what this is, right? More or less Mythic Plus with some rating sprinkled in. The first thing I noticed in the first key I did with the full 4-piece here, I was incredibly happy with how sturdy I became. I did not realize how sturdy and how much more tanky this tier set was going to allow me to be. In 10.0, I played a lot more defensive oriented. I had blackout combo in any kind of real dungeon key that I did, like in 20 plus, because I really liked the insane short cooldown on purifying brews and celestial brews. And I've opted out of a lot of that. I just find it was overkill and it was not needed at all. If that's something you still feel you need, we'll talk about that in the talent section. But really, it's actually pretty incredible how tanky and sturdy this tier set does become. Now, one of the things that you're going to need to learn how to kind of optimize is Rising Sun Kick or Spinning Crane Kick. Right, so as you're going through rotation in single target, you always want to be making sure, as much as possible, of course, that you're hitting Rising Sun Kick in single target for that nice big juicy damage, and then prioritizing Spinning Crane Kick over Rising Sun Kick when you can. Now, Rising Sun Kick deals very good damage, so unless you're really min-maxing that AoE ramp, you can kind of, go by whatever you want, but I would try and prioritize a juicy Rising Sun Kick with a couple of those stacks over a Rising Sun Kick if you've got like 8+ targets, because 25% increased damage and critical strike chance, why not? Right? I mean, come on, it's AoE. We all like doing AoE damage. Alright, so this is the build that I have here with a couple of things that we can flex in and out of and move around. I have become more and more of a fan of bounce back, especially when I'm like progressing keys that I've never done before. So 18, 19, 20s, anything plus that if it's higher than you've ever done it. I know to some people a 20 is low, but to some people a 20 is almost unattainable. So it's kind of all how you want to play. But there's not a whole lot to swap here. The big things is Iron Shell Brew or Expedious Fortification. The cooldown of Fortifying Brew by 2 minutes is really significant. So this is how it affects your Fortifying Brew. I've really enjoyed Iron Shell Brew. I find that the dodge chance is incredibly nice and works really, really well with one another, and everything kind of flows really, really nicely. But where most of your flex point options are going to come are actually going to come in the spec tree itself. Now, I have opted for Facepalm here, mainly due to Counter-Strike being right below it, and the only way to get it. So each time you dodge to your set, or an enemy misses you, your next Tiger Palm or Spinning Crane Kick deals 100% increased damage. Well, guess what? Our tier set is incredibly dodge-centric, right? And we are now looking at more heavily, as I've been looking into more higher-end builds, so a lot of people are still playing Dragonfire Brew, but I have opted for Charred Passions here, which is a lot of fun. So your Breath of Fire ignites your right leg in flame for 8 seconds, causing your Blackout Kick, which Blackout Kick now deals increased damage with the tier set, and Spinning Crane Kick to deal 50% additional damage as fire damage and refresh the duration of Breath of Fire on the target. This works very synergistically with one another with the tier set and everything, and works really, really nice, and allows you to have really big ramps and really big damage here and there, where you can kind of really just have a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. Another thing that you can opt for out of here is Light Brewing and go into Training of Nizao, so gain up to 15% mastery based on your current level of stagger. This is going to increase your tankiness as well as your damage as well. But this is, I would only opt for Training of Nizao once you've learned how to really master your stagger, right? If you're constantly clearing it as fast as possible and you're staying in green stagger a lot, and you're not really kind of trying to stay low red line, as I kind of like to call it, where you're in technically high stagger, but you try and keep it right at the line of yellow to keep this in more beginner friendly terms. You're not going to see a lot out of this if you're constantly in green stagger. Again, I'm trying to keep this simplified for anybody that's just picking up the spec. Light Brewing is really, really solid. Reduces the cooldown of Purifying Brew and Celestial Brew by 20%. This is just going to allow you to get a little bit more oh crap defensives and learn to manage your stagger a little bit better. But once you learn to do that, like there's dungeons where I'm definitely already running Training of Nizao. But if you're just picking up the spec, or this is the first time you're playing it, I would opt for Light Brewing out of these two, just because it's easier to manage, right? Now, elusive footwork becomes really, really good here. I'm just a fan. I've had so much fun with Brewmaster since playing with the tier set and having a lot of fun. Now you can opt out of these 2 points here and go into Bountiful Brew, which is really, really good. And you can go into a couple of other points if you're looking to play a little bit more differently. If you're looking to play extremely defensively, you can go with Blackout Combo. But that is extremely defensive, and I don't feel it's needed anymore. You can also go with Chi Surge to reduce the cooldown of your weapons of order to get them more frequently and more often. That's definitely something that you can do. If you're looking to play if you're always worried about your health and you're constantly dipping way too low, Healing Elixir is also an option, but I would be trying to get out of this as fast as possible. And once you've learned how to really manage your stagger and your dot and instinctualize when you're in trouble, this quickly becomes irrelevant. But it's not a terrible option for beginners that are still really learning how to kind of pick up the spec. Anvil and Stave is also an option that you can go with as well here. Putting 1 point in here. Each time you dodge or an enemy misses you, the remaining cooldown of your brews is reduced by 0.5 seconds. Can only occur once every 3 seconds. But just having that extra little cooldown is going to add some defensive value along the way. So these are things that you can definitely go grab and pick up if you're kind of looking for a little bit of extra help along the way. But really, I think with this one here, you're looking really, really solid. I've definitely seen some no Bone Dust Brew builds. I've seen quite a variability of builds, but this is the one where I'm really, really happy with. I like my damage. I like my defensive capabilities. I like where everything is. Now, Brewmaster really shines in really heavy AoE, right? If if you've got a lot of targets, your Charred Passion, Spinning Crane Kick, your ramps on Weapons of Order, you're going to deal a lot of damage. I've already seen 450, 500k bursts in some of my pulls where I just pulled right and everything, the stars aligned, and I worked really, and you know, my ramp, I was allowed to ramp, because in some of these dungeons, sometimes you get all 4 that go off, and suddenly by the time you're done ramping, you're just like, oh, everything's dead, and I'm just like ready to start. But yeah. Brewmaster is a lot of fun. You got a couple of flex points that you can work with. You got lots of stops. I'm really, really happy with this. You can also get the build code for this down below. I will leave that down in the comment section down below. A couple of tier options, a couple of consumable options. Now, we really, really do like tepid versatility, so I just opt for tepid versatility. It's really cheap. That's kind of just where I go for. It's easy, it's cheap, it's free stats, and Brewmaster really likes, you know, like I said, really likes versatility. We also don't hate mastery anymore, so any point where you can get some extra mastery because of the elusive brawler, that's definitely something you can start amping up. But critical strike, versatility tend to be your more common options here. So let's just put that back on there. Unless you're running Djarin, which is something that you can opt into, try and stick to 2 one-handed weapons versus 1 two-handed weapon, because you are going to be able to just get more enchant damage, right? You're going to be able to get more enchant procs, and the speed of which you kind of attack is a little bit quicker. So these are definitely some things to stop and think about. But Djarin, from what I understand, is actually really, really good. I haven't been in raid much on my monk, so I'm still opting for the 2 one-handed weapons. You can also go with the Frozen Devotion for AoE. The Shadow Flame enchant is actually really solid and deals good damage, but it's more single target, so that's something you might want to kind of weave in. Sophic Devotion gives you the nice agility increase as well, so you definitely have a few options on how you want to play. Sophic Devotion is a combination of offensive and defensive. Frozen Devotion is purely offensive, as is the Shadow Flame enchant. So these are some things you're going to have to stop and think about along the way. Here I did craft the Shadow Flame crest, the Shadow Flame patch, sorry, on my first piece of gear, and I just got rid of my Elemental Lariat, which I'm going to be upgrading this to hero, and then opting to kind of go with a little bit less crit stats on some of my gear, and go with verse mastery, and have some fun there. If you're literally being able to choose whatever tier pieces you want, don't get the chest piece. It's very high haste, and Brewmasters don't need haste. We have Storm Stout / Keg now as just a baseline thing that you can get. It's in every single build. You're always opting into it. So like, the big thing that haste does for Brewmaster is it reduces the cooldown of keg smash. Like, that's kind of what its main thing was. As well as, you know, reducing GCD and things like that, but you kind of don't need that. So Brewmaster is like the only tank in the world that doesn't need haste, so it's very, very easy for you to get the stats that you want and need with critical strike versus, like, for me, I'm at 35% crit, and I'm a little bit high on that. I can afford to reduce that down a little bit, so I'm going to be looking at my gear in the next little while and going through. Another thing that's actually really, really good is the Spore Cloud Cloak that you can craft. If you're looking at crafting that with one of your Shadow Flame Sparks, you can do that. A lot of tanks are running that for higher end keys. I haven't tested it yet, but I've been told it's very, very good. Things to go out and look around. But all around, Brewmaster is really, really fun. I'm loving this spec. It's been so fun to play, and I've just been having a blast. But we are 13 minutes into this video, which is a little bit longer than what I kind of like to keep them. But yeah, so Brewmaster 10.1, really good spot. I will update this if anything really changes. But yeah, lots of fun to be had with Brewmaster. Big blackout kicks, lots of spinning crane kicks that deal fire damage. I don't know. It's just super fun to play. I'm having a blast. Have yourself a good one, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my patrons for making videos like this happen. Have yourself a good one. Happy tanking.